started, even if more people are joining. But yeah, it's 4 minutes past 11 here my time, so I think we can slowly get into it. So yeah, welcome. I'm really happy to have so many of you joining today. As you can see, this is recorded, so that means you will also get a copy of the recording afterwards to the email that you have signed up with. You don't have to tell us your email again. We already have that, and we will be sending out the recording of this webinar to all of you. And so you can also share with your colleagues if you want to, or just rewatch if any parts are not clear or you want to repeat it. Yeah, we have two sections you can see at the bottom. We have the chat that you are already using to connect with each other, so that's great. And we have the Q&A box. And the Q&A box is for questions that you want to ask me, because in the end, we will have a big chunk of time for questions this time, because we've noticed that you always have many, many questions. So we're dedicating a bit more time to that today. And if you want to ask me anything, you have to use the Q&A box, because you are connecting in the chat, which is great, but then it's very difficult for me to find your questions. So I would have to comb through every message. So that's why we're using the Q&A box for questions that you would like me to answer. So just make sure that you do that. Okay, so I'm just reading here that you can't hear me. Is that a problem for everyone? Okay. So now some people say maybe you can just let me know if you can hear me. So I see one person. Okay. Okay, sounds okay. I'm very sorry. Then it sounds like there's a problem on your side. It's not my microphone. I think I'm coming through clearly, hopefully. Maybe you have to switch it on, or maybe just switch up your headphones or something like that. Thank you very much for letting me know that everybody else can hear me clearly, so that I know. Okay, so we will jump right in with the presentation, and yeah, afterwards we have time for questions. So again, if you have any, you can use the Q&A box to let me know. Let me share the screen. Okay. So today's topic is mistakes in proposal writing and how to overcome them. So I will point out the most common mistakes that we have noticed in proposal writing in the last almost 2 decades that we've been working here. We sat together with all of our colleagues with all of their experience to discuss what we see as the most common mistakes in proposal writing, because on the one hand, yes, it's not good to always point out mistakes, so we don't want to focus on that. But on the other hand, we also think if we can, if we see reoccurring patterns, which all of those things that we will show you today are, then it's also good to address them, because many people make those mistakes. And if you know about them, if you know that others make, so yeah. I'm your trainer for today. My name is Eva. I'm from Germany, and I have been working with Philanthropia for close to 10 years now, I think. I have a PhD in geography. I did my research in Nepal and with Hamburg University, and I lived in Nepal from 2012 to 2019, working with small-scale grassroots NGOs on different projects and on fundraising and resource mobilization. Since I'm back in Germany in 2019, I have worked with organizations here in Germany, but I continue working with organizations all across the world, mostly in developing fundraising strategies and doing these trainings on and offline to teach others about how to write great proposals and how to be successful in fundraising. And we at Philanthropia, we are a consulting company. Probably you're all signed up to our newsletter, so you know the services we offer. We have many online courses. We offer these webinars. We have different online formats to teach you about proposal writing, great resources on our websites, philanthropia.org and proposals4ngos.com. And yeah, I hope you take advantage of all of the things that we offer there. So in the beginning, just a couple of definitions so that we're all on the same page. Sorry, I have a little bit of a sore throat, so I have to take a sip of tea every now and then. What is a project proposal? So the project proposal is a document that should entail all the information needed for someone to decide if the project is worthwhile to implement. That's a definition. So basically, you write a proposal for a project when you want to present your project to someone else, usually to get financing for it. So if you present it to a potential donor so that they can then decide on your proposal if they want to support it, if it's worthwhile. So you can think about this a little bit like a marriage proposal, because you present yourself, you ask someone if they want to enter a partnership with you, and it's the same with the donor relationship. Obviously, you're not going to marry them, but you want to enter a partnership, a long-term partnership with them. So before your engagement, you would try to let them know everything about you, let them know as many details as possible about the project, about your life, your character. In the marriage proposal, it would be like your character, and in the project proposal, it's the project. So you need to put in all the details that could convince the potential donor to support your project. We have many resources about writing proposals that are great and that convince donors. And we actually have a great masterclass coming up. I'll be talking about that in the end a bit. But if you want to learn more about proposal writing, I can only urge you to sign up for our masterclass in November, because we will be going through all the steps of this process and focus on every single detail and teach you how you can write great proposals that convince donors. So a proposal is not only great to send to a donor to get funding. Obviously, that's one thing, but it also really helps you to plan strategically. Because when you write a proposal, or the first step before that, a great project plan, that really forces you to think about your project, if it's realistic, if you can implement it in the way that you're planning to, if the target group is interested in actually working with you, if they are included, if you have real participation. You have to think about the budget, so you need numbers, and all of those things really force you to gather information, to gather details, and to find out that way if your project is actually a project or just an idea. And if you want to write a proposal, you're really forced to do all of that, to focus and to find out what the actual needs assessment is, what you actually need for your project, and how the budget should have to be. So that helps you to plan, because many times we encounter organizations that have amazing ideas. So you meet them somewhere and you ask them, oh, so what is your organization doing? And they have it, we're supporting children here, we're doing that and this and this and this, and we want to do so many things. But those are ideas. And when you move from this idea stage and write something down on paper, plan it out, and really kind of spell out every single step of this process, and you spell out how many people do you need for this, how much money do you need for this, all of that, that is when you move towards actually having a project. Because to write a good proposal, you need all those details. You need to be able to tell a potential donor all those details. And that really, really helps you to set your organization up for success. So they have more than one purpose. It's always great to write a proposal for a project. We recommend to write a project plan first, because that way you're not already writing with a specific donor in mind, but you're writing a project plan for your project in the way that you really want the project to look like. But even if you start out with a proposal, that really forces you to look at the project and see if it's realistic, if you want to change something. Obviously, you can also use proposals for your public relations, to reach out, maybe use parts of it on your social media if you gather data, etc. So there are multiple uses for a proposal besides just sending it out to a donor. And it's always going to advance your organization if you have great proposal writing skills and if you develop those skills. Okay, that's a bit too fast. Okay. Yeah, I also want to welcome everybody who joined us through the stream, because we're live streaming this on YouTube as well. Hi, and I hope that you also enjoy this webinar. Thank you very much for logging on. So now we will actually get to the main issues that we see in proposal writing when we read proposals, because we actually read a lot of proposals. Some of us have worked as evaluators as well, so we get to read proposals that others have sent to donors. Sometimes donors ask for support. We also run a lot of competitions where we ask our members and our followers to send us proposals that they have submitted somewhere else, and we find out a winner, like we choose a winner amongst them. But that means we read a lot of proposals, and that's also how we were able to detect these patterns and these kind of syndromes that sometimes end up being huge issues in the long run. So we have identified a couple of those problems, and we've given some funny names to them, so maybe you can also remember them better. Syndrome names, and there's a couple of other issues that we have identified that don't have a syndrome name yet, but maybe we'll develop one at some point. So we will go through them one by one now. I will just explain what they are, give you a couple of examples of how they manifest sometimes, and maybe you catch yourself and see that maybe you're also doing one or two of them, or otherwise maybe you can just find out how you can avoid them in the future and never even have to do them. So first of all, there's Cinderella sister syndrome. Maybe you know the fairy tale of Cinderella and Cinderella's sisters, which was that Cinderella, the prince wanted to find Cinderella, and she had shoes, or a shoe that she forgot. And then her sisters, because they wanted to marry the prince, they tried to fit into the shoe, but the shoe didn't fit, so they got blisters, or in the old version, they even had to cut off part of their foot to fit into the shoe, which is horrible. Which stands for don't try to fit into something that doesn't fit you. And that's why we gave this name to the syndrome, because that's what we see a lot, that NGOs have a project or an idea or some work, and they see a donor's announcement, they see a donor is looking for proposals, and they try to make their project fit into what the donor is looking for, but it doesn't really fit. It wasn't the right call for proposals for them. It wasn't the right donor, the right potential partner for them. There's not a good fit, but they try to squeeze into that call for applications. And you can see that, you can notice that, and that almost never ends up being successful. So if your project is not the perfect fit for that donor, then keep looking. That's why we always stress the importance of donor research in all of our webinars and all of our seminars, because you really, really have to do that research to find a partner that is perfect for you. And you shouldn't have to switch up too much. There's also another name for that, which is mission creep, which we see in many NGOs, that if a donor has a specific focus and the NGO has a slightly different one, but because they really want to work with that donor, they're changing their own mission and their own projects to fit within what the donor wants to see. To some degree, that is okay. And we also recommend that you obviously adjust to what a donor wants to see, because in the end, they are making the decisions. But you shouldn't do that too much. And you shouldn't change to a degree that then doesn't feel like you anymore. No, you should never do things that you don't agree with 100%, that you're not on board with. But that happens sometimes. We see that. And again, when there is a call for proposals, your proposal doesn't quite fit, then at least you have to talk to someone at that donor's office and find out if it's okay to apply. Otherwise, you're just trying to squeeze into a shoe that doesn't fit, and that will never be successful. And always remember, whenever you apply for an opportunity where you never ever had a chance, you're wasting a tremendous amount of work, tremendous amount of resources in your own organization, but also at the donor's office, because they have to read your proposal anyways. So someone is wasting their time, and maybe they won't look as favorably at your future proposals if you have done that once. So really, really make sure that whatever you apply for, that you can that you actually fit within the description of what they are looking for, 195%. And if you're not sure before you just apply, talk to them, network, find out if you should apply. Then we have the spaghetti syndrome. And that comes from this idea or this concept. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a bit weird, but I've also learned that in Germany. I've never done it, but I've heard about it, that people say, if you don't know if the spaghettis are good, that you have to take 2 or 3 and throw them at the fridge. And if they stick, they're good. And if they fall down, they're not good yet. I mean, you could just try a spaghetti. I think that's the better way without wasting food. But we've used this here because what we often see in proposals is that people try to be successful by putting as many things as possible in their proposal and hope that something sticks, so that the donor will like one of those components. If they propose 5 different things, they're hoping, well, at least the donor will like one of them, so then we'll be successful. But that's not how it works, actually. If you are proposing too many different things, donors might think that you don't know how to focus, that you don't know the area or the target group very well, because you don't know what exactly you should propose. You're all over the page, and that often is not a good proposal. The best proposals are the ones that focus on 1 or 2 things and say, we want to solve this, and this is how we're going to do it, and not trying to check all the boxes. Obviously, there's things like cross-cutting issues where you do have to check more than one box. So, for example, even if you are proposing a project for environmental education, you still have to check the gender equality box. But that doesn't mean that the other main focus of your project has to be gender equality. It should be touched upon as well, but you don't have to make it another main focus, because then you're just watering down your main project, which should be the environmental education, no? So don't try to just propose so many things and throw them at the donor, hoping that something will stick. Because usually, again, focused projects that show that you are an expert, that your organization knows exactly what they're doing, that you are working with target groups, that you know what needs to be done, and you're the specialist for something specific. Those are the proposals that will be more successful. Again, that comes back to the necessity of doing great research, because for that kind of work and for that kind of approach, you do need to know the donor. You need to know exactly what they want to see, because obviously, if you're proposing 5 things, then, or let's say 4 things, and 1 is a great fit for the donor, then you'll have 25% right. If you propose 1 thing which is a great fit for the donor, you're 100% right. But if you propose 1 thing and it's not a fit for the donor, you're 0% right. So the risk obviously is higher when you specialize or when you focus on 1 thing only. Again, and that speaks to the importance of having to know the donor and having to speak to them and find out what exactly they want to know. So yeah, that is the spaghetti syndrome. Again, it's always better to focus. Don't try to set yourself up too broad, because that is not going to work, and that is not going to convince the donor that you are this amazing fit and that you are the specialist for the kind of work that you want to do. The next one we have is the superhero syndrome, which is also something that we see quite a lot. That means if you say that you want to solve everything, but you want to solve something way too big in your proposal. So you are applying for a small grant for $10,000 to run a small agriculture project in your community, but you say that you want to eradicate hunger in your country. That's not going to work. So if you claim too big of an impact, that's always going to end up being an issue. You have to be realistic. You have to claim the impact that you actually can have, and not something that is way too big and way out of your league. So you're not, obviously you are a superhero in the sense that you are doing amazing work in your community, but you're not that kind of hero that can do everything and doesn't need any sleep and can solve every single issue around the world. Stay realistic. Think about the things that you can actually achieve with your organization, with your work, and stick to that, because that shows, some people think that if they promise more, that will convince the donors, that they will think, well, oh, this organization wants to do so much with that money. But that also sets you up for failure, because if you're not able to deliver on that, and you probably won't be able to deliver on that if you overpromise, then that's going to end up being a huge issue for you, because then your proposal will fail, even if you did great work. So either the donors see that you're overpromising and you don't get the grant, or they don't realize that and give you the grant, and then you fail in your project report, and not because you didn't do good work, because you did, but because you overpromised in the beginning. So don't set yourself up as or your organization as the superhero who wants to do everything. Stay realistic and just say the things, just show the things that you realistically can do. Then we have the doing without achieving syndrome, which is the other side of the coin, kind of. In the development sector, we often have the situation that people have been there for a long time. I'm pretty sure that that is not the biggest issue for you, because most of you are from grassroots organizations who want to avoid this kind of situation. But sometimes we see that organizations are just doing the same. They're always applying again for very similar projects. They're just repeating the same. They're not going with the time. They're not thinking about any innovation in their project proposals. They're not thinking about any of that, but they're just doing stuff, and nothing ever changes. Because if you apply for the same project 3 or 4 times in a row, and you still have the same justification in your proposal as you had within the first project, then something's wrong. Because if you're not achieving any outcome, if nothing changes for the people you work with, at least you need a good explanation. But that is, again, that's something that we see, so that people just propose things that like run on repeat, like training, for example. You probably all know that in developing countries, you can take part in so many trainings, and there's training and capacity development all over the place. But many of those proposals, many of those trainings don't have an impact. They don't really go anywhere, because they stay theoretical, etc. And one thing that we can tell you is try to exclude these activities from your proposals, because that is nothing you can really collect points with. You always need a clear objective with everything you want to do, a clear proposed outcome for this objective, and a clear strategy on how to achieve that, because otherwise it might look as you're just trying to employ people without really thinking of what will come out of that, and where you will end up with this. Then we have the Adonis syndrome, which means when you talk, or when people talk about too much about their own NGO. We see that quite a lot as well, especially if the NGO has been the focus of specific attention or something like that. So we usually recommend that you don't use up a lot of space in your proposal for your organizational profile, because usually a donor wants to know more about the project. They don't want to know so much about your organization. They do want to know if you are a good partner and if you have experience with this kind of work. So everything that connects to that is something you definitely should show. So part of your project proposal is you introducing yourself as a good partner, first of all, long-term partner, sustainable partner, and as someone who is the expert for the project that you want to implement, as someone who really knows what you're doing, who has experience, who has good connections to the target group, etc. But that's all. You don't have to show much more. Like the organizational structure of your organization, of your board, whatever, it's not really needed in the proposal. It can be an annex, but if it's not asked for, that's nothing you really need to include there. And also, whatever information you share, think about how to make it a bit more interesting. Because I've seen so many proposals that actually started with the sentence, we are organization XYZ, registration number, blah, 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 registered in 2010. The first sentence, they're already bored. And that's not what you want. So try to include all the important information, obviously, but maybe not in the first sentence of your proposal, because first their main focus is they want to know about the project. And then again, as background, they need to know if you are a good partner and if you can actually implement that project. But their main focus is not getting to know your organization. And many NGOs do that. We always see that talking about the organization, talking about past projects that are not related or not connected at all to the project proposed, etc., or they're great board members that are celebrities, whatever. That can have its place, but usually, especially if you have to limit the number of characters that you want to include, it's just wasted space. So really focus on the project and just share the information that is crucial for them to get to know you as a partner and to get to know you as someone who can really implement that project that you're proposing here. Don't flatter yourself too much in the proposal. Be realistic. It always comes down to that. Don't lie, be realistic and show your experience without overdoing it. Then we have this thing which is connected to the doing without achieving, which is just more of the same. So no innovation at all. You will see that, and there's a question we always get, what does innovation mean in a project proposal? Because usually donors always ask for innovative approaches. What does that mean? Do you have to invent something? No, usually it doesn't mean that you have to be super innovative, but you have to think of new ways of approaching things. So an innovation can already be the way that you have, the way that you approach target groups, the way that you talk to them, some different methodology to actually collect what they need, what they want to see in their communities, etc. It could be if you use technology, if you use an app, if you use I don't know, phone messages, stuff like that. So all of these components are innovations, and that is often enough to tick that innovations box. But you should try to include some of that and always think, it's always good to think about how you can design your projects in a way that is a bit more innovative, and that is a bit that is a different approach than the one that you and maybe also your colleagues have used in the past years. Because obviously, if that approach would have been the best approach that is out there, maybe the problems would have been solved. No, comes back to that. So just think of the ways that your project is innovative, and often your projects are innovative. You just don't show it always. Sometimes we see projects that propose using of the internet to get weather reports to farmers or whatever, using phones, etc. And then it's not really presented in a way that you see that at first glance. So just think of the ways that your proposal, your project is maybe a bit different, and then also focus on that and show that, and let that speak for itself, because many don't do that enough. And then if you've ever taken part in a webinar with me, you know that that is my pet peeve, but it is the most common mistake in proposal writing, not paying attention to the guidelines, making formal mistakes and not following the donor's rules. That is why it is so important that you do your due diligence, that you really, really research donors, that you do a lot of prospecting, and you find the perfect donor fit for you. Because if you don't have a donor that really wants to fund your work, then you will never be successful. It doesn't matter how great your proposal is. It's like with the job application. If you are a tailor and you want to and you apply at a doctor's office to be a doctor, well, you won't get the job, and that doesn't speak to your abilities as a tailor, just speaks to the fact that you applied for the wrong job. And that's the same with proposals. If you apply with donors that don't want to fund the kind of work you do, you will always fail. And if you don't pay enough attention to the guidelines, you will end up failing as well. So we have actually prepared a checklist that with 7 things that you have to check before you even think about applying somewhere. And they all have to be, all those questions have to be answered with a definite yes. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't even try to apply there. Because if the donor doesn't fund in the country that you work in, then you're not going to get the grant. If your donor doesn't fund the kind of activities that you want to do, then you will not get the grant. So those are questions that you really have to answer with a definite yes. And you might think that this is so easy and so straightforward, so why am I even talking about this? But we see this all the time. This is the most common mistake. Even in Germany, there's data about this, that in any given call for proposals, in any given opening, with organizations that are professional, not volunteers that just want to do a project, but professional organizations, still 40% of proposals fail due to formal issues, due to not paying attention to the guidelines. And that can be things from that as blatant as not funding in the country or in the district that an organization works with, but it can be other things as well, like the deadline or following the formatting rules. That is important. If they tell you to use a specific format, to use a specific font, then you have to do that. Because I think donors use those rules to kind of weed out people who don't follow rules, because they see that oftentimes as an indication that maybe you wouldn't be able to follow rules during implementation either, but also because they get completely flooded with proposals often. If you have an open call, a global open call, there can be thousands of proposals for one open call. So you really need to figure out how to weed through that. And often it's the people who don't follow the guidelines that get kicked out before anybody ever reads their proposal. So really, really be a stickler here and pay attention, because that is the most common mistake and the most easy one to avoid. If you just really pay attention, if you collect all that information, collect intelligence about the donor, find out what they really want to see, and then just follow those rules and follow their guidelines. Yeah, the most important guideline document that you will have are the guidelines. So we always recommend you print, once you start working on a proposal, you print them out, put them next to your computer, and leave them there throughout the process. Because I think it's very human that we don't want to pay enough attention to that, because if we see something and we like it and we really want to apply, then maybe we're not as diligent as we should be. Another example that I always tell, but it was so clear to me how important this is there was a call for proposals for human rights projects. And it was for all of Asia, so all Asian countries except for India, for whichever reason. I don't know, I don't remember what the exact reason was, but Indian NGOs couldn't apply for this opportunity, and they received around 1,000 applications. And can you imagine how many of those applications were from India? It was half of them, 500. So 500 NGOs took days, if not weeks, of their time to prepare a proposal and send it out, even though they never even had a chance, because it clearly said not from India. And 500 NGOs didn't see that or didn't want to see that. I think sometimes also we think, oh, if we can, our proposal, our project is so good, we can still get through the cracks and we can still be successful. But just remember how inundated they get with proposals. So they're probably not going to do that. If you make a mistake in this, they're not going to fund you, because there is reasons for those guidelines. There are reasons for the things that they put in there. And I have another example from my personal experience. And because when I apply for a job, I hate that I always have to write cover letters and stuff, because I always think, well, just look at my CV. You can see everything that there is in my CV. I have a great CV. I always think of myself, obviously, but not particularly. But I mean, when I apply for a job, I think I'm a good fit for that job. And my CV would be a good fit for that job. And I always got frustrated with all those stupid rules around applying for a job, and it took so much time. And then at some point I was in the position that I had to give a job. I had to find someone for a job at our office. And we also put in specific rules, like you had to put in, I think, your name, the job description or the job title in the subject line of the email, and then attach everything in just one attachment and write a cover letter, stuff like that. But I thought to myself, well, no, I'm going to be great at this, and I don't care if someone made a mistake here. I'm going to read every single CV and decide just by looking at their skills. And then for that one job, we got 400 applications, and I had 1 day to choose someone. So after 5 minutes, I decided, okay, well, what do I do? Okay, all of those people who didn't follow those guidelines, out. Maybe I missed on some amazing candidate, but then suddenly I understood where those guidelines come from and why people put them in place, because it is to streamline processes and it is to make work easier. So do yourself a favor and really follow those guidelines, even if they don't make sense to you, even if you don't like the font Times New Roman. Do what the guidelines say, because otherwise you're always running the risk of your proposal being thrown in the trash immediately. And then we have another mistake that we also see quite often. I think that's the last one on our list, is to not be clear on the vocabulary and to mix up parts of the proposal. So I think we have 2 examples here. That basically just means often you get like a proposal form, like that you have to fill out, and it asks you in the specific questions. And many people confuse the sections. So 2 of the most common examples are those terms. The terminology, vision, mission, goals, objectives, all of them describe what you want to achieve. The vision is the broadest one. Mission is still very broad. Goals and objectives are important for a proposal. Sometimes they're also called overall objective and specific objective, but they basically mean, what do you want to achieve? And usually it is split up, that you have one goal for the project. That is the main goal that you want to achieve with that project, the main change in the lives of your target group, or maybe already change on the level of society. And the objectives, and you can have 2 or 3 objectives under that will contribute towards the goal. But often we see that people confuse the term goal and objective. And when the donors ask, what is your objective? They describe their goal, so the overall thing. And when the donor asks, what is your goal? They describe the objective. So mixing up those terms is never a very good look. I completely understand how it can happen, because that terminology is used in different circumstances in different ways. but it's super important that you know the distinction between all of them. That's why we offer so many courses and resources on exactly the terminology, what means what and what needs to go where, so that you can be sure to not mix up anything. Another example where we see this is a lot is confusing output, outcome, and impact. So those are three words that describe the result of your project. So what do you think the result will be, the change that you will achieve? And the output is the direct result of an activity. So if you implement an activity, what happens next? That's the output. Outcome is midterm. So whatever the people, the target group then does with the product or the knowledge, whatever your activity was. And the impact is very long-term on the level of society. Impact is usually something that you cannot achieve, but that you can only contribute to. So those are three very different categories. And if you confuse that, if in one of those proposal forms, it asks you for your proposed outputs, and you say, well, the output is going to be that more kids will go to school, that's not an output, that's an impact. And if you confuse those terms, that's, again, not a good look, and that can be very problematic. Again, I completely understand that that terminology is very difficult to learn and to always understand. And I've also seen donor forms where it wasn't used correctly. So you're definitely not the only ones. But it is important that you try to understand the distinctions, try to understand what everything means, and put it in the correct spot. And again, there will be a big focus in the masterclass that we offer in November exactly on these things, so that you know the distinctions between the terms and that you know exactly what to put where, and that is going to determine a lot of the success of your proposal. Yeah, and with that, we come to the end of today's presentation. And like I've mentioned before, we do have this proposal writing masterclass coming up that you definitely should register for if you want to learn more about proposal writing. It's a full month of information. We have a free version that you can sign up for, that you don't have to pay anything for. You will get, there will be 4 webinars, there will be emails, etc., resources, and we have a paid version at a special price for people from developing countries. So you should really take advantage of that, where we have even more webinars. I think then it's twice a week, and a one-on-one consultation with me for 1 hour, where we can discuss your specific issues, specific proposals, etc., whatever it might be, access to the donor database, and many more perks. So really check it out. I'm sure, yeah, it's in the chat now. So the link to the masterclass is in the chat now. I think this is a great opportunity to end the year with something amazing, and then be prepared for 2024 to really, really uplift your fundraising and your grant writing. I would love to see you join this. Again, we have a free version and a paid version, whatever works for you and for your budget. And I would love to see you in that masterclass. Yeah, here we have even more information. This is for the paid version. In that version, we have webinars about developing a fundraising strategy. That's how we will start. Then designing a good project, which is super important. So how to write a project plan, how to write a project that donors really want to fund. Then we have 3 sessions about proposal writing. So everything that I mentioned today, all those details about vocabulary, what to put where, how to structure it, how to go about it. We have 3 intensive sessions about proposal writing where we'll go into all those details. Then we will have a session about the log frame, which is completely new. We've just introduced that because we know many donors want to see that, and many of you have questions about that. So we'll have a session on that. And then something about the sustainability plan, a full session, because also that is important for donors. And it's also something that NGOs still don't do enough. And I think you can really, really collect points if you do that well. So those are the webinars that we do. And they are all live, obviously. You always have the chance to ask me questions and to interact. And again, with that paid version, you also have a one-on-one consultation with me. And I think it's access to the donor database and to further resources as well. And in developed countries, the price for that, the full month is $250 US, and for NGOs in developing countries, it's 125. So again, I really hope that some of you get the opportunity to join. If you have issues with the payment because of the way the payment structure is set up, please get in touch. We can always find a solution and figure this out. We also have many more other online courses on philanthropia.org about different topics. Some are very specific, like how to raise funds from USAID or creating log frames. Some are more general, like online fundraising or donor research, etc. So if you want to learn more about this, please check out all the courses we offer at philanthropia.org. We also have a coupon code for you. So if you use the coupon code fundraise, you can get 35% off of all the courses that you can find there. And yeah, I hope that I can see some of you there as well, and that will join us. We have the donor database, which we always recommend because that's a database where you find more than 5,000 donors. You can search there. You can type in the country that you work in, the area that you work in, and you will get a list of potential donors that fund your work. You can find it at donordatabase.org, and it's free for a week. So if you just want to try it out, you can do that for 1 week, and only after that you would get charged. So you can also make the decision to not join. Yeah, thank you so much. And now we still have time for questions. So yeah, I'll just stop the presentation and see if there are questions. Looks like it. So I'll start from the top. With the advent of AI, what opportunities and challenges do you see in its use for proposal writing? And do donors see this as a threat? Do they require proof that AI was not used in proposal writing? Question by Tom. AI, yeah, it's going to change many things. I don't think that any donor sees that as a threat, because they you still have to propose a project that will work, and it doesn't really matter who helped you with it. I mean, you can use consultants to write your proposals, and donors don't mind. So I think from that perspective, that's not a big issue. You also don't have to prove that you didn't use AI, because I mean, it's not a writing exercise. You're not at school. You can always use support from outside. There are some services that offer help with proposal writing, and I think they do that very well. We have a free webinar actually that we did about AI. So if you want to check that out, we talk more about that. I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially if English is not your first language. You can have it spell correct for you. You can rephrase things. You can tell them the tonality, use it for that. So I think that's going to be very, very useful. It can also help. Work is still on you. It's a great tool that can help you. It's developing very, very quickly. So maybe tomorrow what I'm saying now is already wrong. But until now, I think it's a tool that can really, really help you, but obviously not replace you as a proposal writer. Then another question by Tom: are there guidelines and checklists that you use to review proposals beyond the donor guidelines? Well, there's just obviously logic, no? That you have to follow. Usually you have the guidelines, and then you have to kind of decide if the project is possible. Like if you trust the person proposing the project, that is always something good. And then the relevance for the donor is usually something that you have to score on. So how relevant is that project for the work that the donor wants to do? Do you actually help them achieve their mission? And if yes, you get many points here. If no, then then obviously you have to show that your work has some kind of impact, or that it contributes to some impact. If you just do something and you cannot prove that this will actually solve the problem that you have identified as a problem, that's going to be an issue. Those are just the logical things. But usually, if you really review proposals for a donor, they give you a specific checklist that you should follow, that you have to give points on, and they are very specific with that. And a third question by Tom, which tools can help us map and match our visions and goals and skills with those of the donors to avoid the Cinderella sister syndrome? I think, I don't know any specific tools that you can really use, but you really have to do your research. You really have to find out who that donor is, because what you want in the end is you want to enter a partnership. You want to find someone that you can work with long term, that you like, that you want to be associated with, etc. So you try to have to get to know that donor at a holistic scale. What are their values? Who have they worked with in the past? Where does the money come from? It's a question you should ask yourself. Because some foundations specifically get their money from maybe sources you wouldn't want to be associated with. Like if you are working in the environmental sector, maybe you don't want to associate with a foundation that gets all their money from big oil. Or I don't know, if you're working in the rainforest in South America, maybe not working with the Coca-Cola Foundation maybe isn't the greatest idea. So you have to decide on that. And I think the very first thing that you have to do is write down and map out your own theory of change and your own visions and goals, because many NGOs don't do that properly. They think everybody knows that, but especially if you grow, people are not always on the same page anymore, and you don't know if everybody is on the same page. So first of all, be clear about your own theory of change, about your own values, and then you can go out and research, talk to people, etc., to find if you align. And then, I mean, you will notice, that's why the process we usually propose is first you write a project plan. You write a plan for the project, how you want to implement it. And then you go out and look for donors. And you can take the project plan, look at it from different angles. And then when you propose to a donor, propose your project to a donor, obviously in the proposal, you have to use the angle the donor wants to use. But if you have to switch it up too much, if you have to switch up components that were important to you, I think then you will notice yourself that maybe that donor is not a good fit. And yeah, I think I hope that answers the question. And the next question by Joseph is, assuming it's my first time to implement, I don't have any experience, what can I do? I think there's two easy things that you can do when you just start out to gain more experience, because experience is something that people want to see. So often it's a good idea if you start out with small grants, because that's a bit different. If you apply for a small grant can be anything between 1,000 and 10,000. Some organizations still call a 20,000 grant small, but I think usually it's up to 10,000. If you apply for that, organizations or donors are very understanding for the fact that often you are just starting out, you're a new NGO, you don't have experience. So there you don't have to show all of that. So that's a good way to get experience, because then if you run one of those programs successfully, then for the next time you already have experience, you have references, etc. And then the other thing you can do is to partner up with an organization that does have all that experience. So if you find a partner organization, maybe in your community, maybe in your area, who does similar work but has more experience, you can partner up with them and apply jointly for an opportunity. For that, it is important that you are clear about the roles and responsibilities in that partnership, that you have a contract, that you write everything down before, because oftentimes people are very enthusiastic about a partnership, and then once the money comes in, suddenly it's more difficult. So make those decisions before you send out anything. Then there's another question by Tom. Does the culture of the donor agency influence how it reviews proposals? Yes, to a degree, I would say so. So usually we have a course that is called Fundraising from American Foundations with our specialist, Eric, for that. And he always says, for example, in American Foundation, oftentimes it's way more important that you don't have any typos because they're sticklers for that. They think that is a reflection on the quality of your work. While when you apply with the European Foundation, whatever, in Sweden or the Netherlands, they probably won't care that much because, first of all, it's not their first language either. But second of all, they're just not focused on that so much. Same as who should address the donor. Like if in egalitarian countries like the Netherlands or Sweden, often it's better if the project manager addresses a grant manager and they talk about this. In America, in the US, it's often better if a higher up contacts the donor because they like to be contacted by the executive director or whatever. If you try to fundraise, for example, in the Middle East, with the Gulf donors, for example, it has to be the highest person in your hierarchy because they won't talk to a grant officer, to a project manager or project officer. So yeah, that does reflect, and also obviously the priorities they put. No, but that's what I mean. When you research a donor, you will find out about their culture, about what they want to see, and that reflects obviously on that. Then Stanford has a question: what if you want to scale up? Can you propose for the same interventions? Yes, often you can, but that you can. If you can show that this was successful and then you scale up, that is not proposing more of the same. With more of the same, I meant more like if you stay in the same community, you just do the same thing over and over again. The thing you have to show, though, that it's a different project. Obviously, scaling up is not like, it's often connected to the first project, but usually donors don't want to fund projects that have already started. So you have to make sure that this is project phase 2, very different focus. Then Tom has another question. What is the time commitment for the masterclass course for both the free and paid versions, including the self-study time? I haven't calculated that yet, but it's so for the paid version, you have 2 hours of webinars, or let's say 3 with the questions. And then I would think it's at least 2 hours per week of self-study. So that would be 5. I think it would be between 4 and 5 hours per week, maybe with a 1 week preparation, 1 week wrap up. For 6 weeks, if you would spend 6 weeks, it will be about 4 hours per week, I would say, if you want to work through all the material that we also give, the one-on-one session, etc. Yeah, I think I already shared the course content mostly, but you can also go to the link and just check out the page. It has a very good representation of what we will share there. We don't have a partnership program though. Then there's a question, what is the role of the grant officer during the project phases? That depends on your organization. That is very, very different in organizations. In some organizations, the grant officer just, I mean, I don't know if you mean in your organization or at the donor's office, because it also depends. They both can have that title, but if we say at your organization, sometimes grant officers are only responsible to apply and write the proposal, send it out, and that's that. Sometimes, okay, within the organization, I see, thank you. Sometimes you're also responsible for the final report. Sometimes you're even responsible for supervising the project. That depends. So you really have to work that out within your organization. It also depends a lot where these people, where you are situated within your organization, because sometimes grant managers are situated within the finance department, and then obviously you probably would be responsible for the financial part of the report. Sometimes you're situated within the PR department. And then obviously, again, it's a different focus. And sometimes you're situated directly with the leadership. And then usually you have a little bit more of an oversight position that is different in every single organization I've ever worked with. And it's something that you have to figure out. But it's super important that you have clear responsibilities and that they are written out in your job description and the terms of reference of your job. So check that if you have that. If it's not clear there, talk about that with your seniors, because you need to know what your responsibilities are. There might be nothing after you submit it successfully. They might be everything. Depends on your organization. You kind of have to figure that out. Okay, I think all the other questions are a bit more specific about other topics. So if you can also go to proposals4ngos.com. We have tons of articles, resources, for example, about outcome, output, impact, about log frame, etc. So you can check that out there. If yeah, I hope, again, I hope to see many of you in the November masterclass. If I know that not everybody's able to pay, that is why we split it up into a free version as well, which also will have amazing content. We will share tons of stuff there. I hope some of you can also join the pro version, because I think that is really going to be a game changer for you. And I will see you there. We will not have webinars for the next 2 weeks because in Nepal we have the Dasai celebration. And after that, we'll start the masterclass. And yeah, I hope to see many of you in there. I hope you have a great week, and thank you so much for taking part in today's session. See you soon.